Hello.
Hello and welcome to another episode of TGE'S Current Read. We are your hosts, Sam
And Charlene.
and joining us today is licensed marriage and family therapist and founder of the popular Conscious Mommy community on Instagram, Facebook and TikTok, Bryana
Kappadakunnal.
Oh no, I'm getting it
Did
wrong.
we get it right? Kappadakunnal. Anyway, she can help us.
We're gonna go.
Brianna's latest book, Parent Yourself First, gives readers a look into how your upbringing is probably impacting your parenting style in ways you don't even fully recognize, from how you manage your own emotions to how you connect with your kids in their vulnerable moments.
According to Bryana Kappadakunnal,
Ah,
the secret to successful parenting is to unlearn the wounded patterns you grew up with and create new ways to connect with your child.
as the book acknowledges, many of us did not have a perfect childhood, but through intentionality and mindfulness, Bryana has helped many parents transform into the parent they were always meant to be.
We cannot wait anymore to dive in for some expert parenting support. Bryana Kappadakunnal, aka Conscious Mommy, welcome to TGE's Current Read.
Thank you so much, Sam and Charlene. It is a joy and a pleasure to be here with both of you, and I'm excited for our conversation.
I mean, look, nothing screams imperfect parenting like the two of us. Charlene.
Hot Mess Express has arrived.
You're joining us now at the beginning of your day, Bryana. The end of our day, and we've both what we like to call shit shows.
Yes.
And we'll try not to be too expletive on today's show, but that's pretty much what you can call it.
Yeah, you know, when you get to the end of the day and you're just like, you wake up and you're like, okay, just brace yourself. It's going to be a good day. You just got to get through this day. But as you near the end of the day, you're like, okay, I'm running out of steam.
Yeah. So but we are pleased to have you to support us in this moment because it's going to make bedtime a lot easier, I think. I'm going to have
Facts.
some of Bryana's zen. But Bryana, we want to know first and foremost, before we get stuck into our discussion, who calls you mom? Can we put you on the spot there?
Yes, I have two kiddos. I have one, his name is Mateo, and he's going to be 7 soon. And then I have a little one named Giovanni, but we call him Jojo. And he just turned 4, actually. So I just dropped them off at school and was trying not to rush them, but was also like, God, I have to get to the office, so let's go.
7 and 4.
7 and 4. So my little ones are 8 and 4. And
He just turned 8, yeah.
he just turned that. So they have a 4-year age gap pretty much. 3 years by the calendar year. So in schooling they'll be 3 years. But so to say 4 years. Also 2 boys. And Charlene.
Yeah, I've got 2. My eldest is 9. He just turned 9. And my it's a boy, Joshua, and my youngest, Jessie Lynn Violet, is 7. She just turned 7 in December.
Beautiful. So we're all in similar seasons.
We are, and we've got lots to unpack.
I think that's probably
here.
also why this book just hits you in the feels so much.
It definitely resonated, and it was something I definitely needed, especially the last 3 months with my eldest. But funny you should say, Bryana, before we get stuck into our prepped notes and the questions, you didn't want to rush your kids. Charlene and I were talking about exactly that. Like, how do you there's lots of what you say in how to implement and what to do, and that is very useful. But we also just like got to the end of it and thought we're still those moms shouting at our kids to put on their shoes and rushing them out of the door, and
We're gonna be late.
Life just feels like one big rush. So how did this morning go for you? Walk us through that, because you felt that anxiety. You had this meeting with us. You've just had that. What did you do? What happened?
Yeah, I think I was maybe about 50% of the type of mother that I want to be in those moments. So there was a part of me that was aware that, okay, we gotta move, but I'm also noticing that if I'm too anxious about it and I'm moving so fast in almost a frenetic way, that's going to actually slow my kids down. And how did I figure that out? Well, one, I just know that intellectually, but what we know intellectually, like, never really, it doesn't actually like matter when you're in the moment, right? And so it was my kiddo literally just started moving very, very slowly and acting like he had no idea how to put his shoes on. Then I was like, oh, okay. I need to slow down. I need to focus on some connection. And I said, okay, buddy, why don't you come here? I'm going to put your sweatshirt on. And it felt like we were taking a long time to put his sweatshirt on, but we really weren't. It's just when you're moving quickly, it feels like the smallest things take longer than they need to. So our perception also shifts and changes. So just kind of allowing myself to just feel my feet on the floor, noticing that my voice was elevated, primarily in anxiety, because I did not want to be late for you ladies. And I knew I was going to hit traffic. And I also knew I still needed to get my coffee. You know, like, I cannot start my day without my coffee.
Lord knows we need our coffee.
But it was just like that, just taking that intentional moment. All right, we're just putting on his jacket. All right, I'm just grabbing my things. Now we're in the car. All right, now we're all buckled. Okay, now we're putting on a song. And then letting the rhythm of the song tune me and help me just really be present to the car ride and just trying to trust we're not terribly late. And it's all going to work out. And that's what I was telling myself, just a positive mantra. So grace for the elevation, but then also, inviting the present, I think, is what helped me get here without feeling like such a hot mess. I don't necessarily feel totally non-hot mess, but you know what I'm saying? I'm not like at a level 10 right now.
It's nice to give yourself that 50%. And I was saying to Charlene, it's that exact thing that you said that I think really summed up the book for me, which I'm going to ask you to do your elevator pitch, but I really just want to share with our listeners that moment of there's a moment in the book where you mention that when it comes to parenting yourself first and being intentional as a parent, a lot of your clients, the adult clients, complain. If they have a complaint, what they'll say is that it just takes so much time and that's so anxiety inducing. And you mention, okay, it's almost the same as like choose your hard. Both are going to take the same amount of time. The one feels slower, but at the end of the day, you can get to that same end point, either a hot mess with your moods elevated in a worst way and your children dysregulated and you dysregulated and you start the day in a really horrible way, or you can take the same amount of time. It feels slower, but at the end of the day, you're getting to the same point. And I think that applies to like the smaller moments in parenting, but also the big moments. If you take the time to really be intentional in these small moments, it can save you in the long run. So you're taking the same amount of time to put in this effort. You just have to choose which effort you're putting in. And that for me was this reframe that I really, really needed, of not feeling like I was a victim of my decision to be a conscious and intentional parent.
Right. Yeah. Love it. Beautifully, beautifully said. And I know I said it, but when I hear it back and I hear it back out of the mouths of other people, it's so resonant. We are going to put in the time no matter what. We are going to put in the time into power struggles and trying to control the kids and trying to get the kids to be obedient and be who we expect them to be, even if it means we're crushing their souls and their spirits and their self-expression. Or we are going to put in the time nurturing sense of security, a sense of feeling seen and heard, deep connection and attachment, and really helping these children build important life skills like problem solving and collaboration and perspective taking and empathy and compassion. And I liken it to like stock investing. You know, we can invest in penny stocks that don't cost much, but you're going to lose on your investment. right? You're going to be putting money in and you're not going to get much out of it. You probably won't even make good on what you invest. Or you can invest on Apple before it went public and you're going to make big. You know what I'm saying? We may as well put our time, our attention, our presence, our affection, and all this work that basically every parent I know is putting in, right? We're doing the hardest job there is. You're putting in the time and the effort already. You may as well put it in where we know there will be some kind of fruitful outcome that, I think we can lay our heads on the pillow at night and feel good about.
Right. Bryana, I normally do this towards the end, but I think it's a good segue to highlight just a part of the book. You so kindly pegged a part on page 4. I don't want to give away too much of the contents of the book. We're going to talk around kind of how you tackle topics in the book. But if you could read that section from the introduction so that our listeners know what your book, let's just repeat the title for those who need it. Again, Parent Yourself First, Become the Parent You Wish You'd Had. So Bryana, if you could read just that small section out of the introduction so our listeners can get up to speed on exactly what we're discussing and what to expect from this book.
Sure. To get inside your child's mind and understand them better, you need to do a deep dive into your own life story and discover why you act the way you do and how you came to be. In this book, you will examine your core life narrative. What happened to you in your childhood that remains unresolved today? You'll understand what patterns have emerged from your upbringing that continue to impact you in the present moment with your children. You'll discover the social and cultural influences that imprison your psyche, dictating how you should think, feel, and act based on factors that are largely outside your control. Ultimately, you will learn to liberate yourself from the beliefs and behavior patterns that no longer serve you.
Yeah.
This was equal parts freeing for me to learn about my own triggers and the things that control me. Equal parts kind of freeing and liberating, but also hard to reckon with. And Bryana, interestingly enough, I'm so familiar with your voice because half the book I read in hard copy and half the book I listened to in my commute, dropping kids off, picking them up, taking them to extramurals, and it was really lovely. I love it when an author reads their own work. Yeah, I don't know, what was that recording process like for you? Did you consider getting somebody else to read it? What were you happy to read? I mean, you read beautifully, so it's a no-brainer for me.
Thank you. Oh, it was a dream. It was a dream come true, ladies. I mean, I'm a theater girly. Like, I was like, give me the mic. Like, let me read.
It makes so much sense now.
It's a joy.
Charlene's a theater
It was a
girly
joy.
too.
Oh, great. I love it.
When I read
it was
the
a really
part,
fabulous experience.
well, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to say, when I read the part in the book where you were talking about what type of child you were and how your mom dropped you off at kindergarten and said that this one never shuts up, I the way you described yourself, I was like, oh my God, I was like that as a kid.
And look at us now, Charlene. Look at us now.
This is the thing. What better podcast co-host to have than someone who never shuts up?
Exactly. You were designed for them, Charlene. She just didn't know because we didn't know what podcasts back then. You know, they weren't a thing.
Exactly.
So Bryana, this, as I said, equal parts kind of liberating, but also really hard to deal with. You speak about your inner child and shadow work. And when you look at social media especially, and you look at people who deal with shadow work, it can seem very woo-woo, it can are we going into real spiritual hardcore stuff? But you're a psychologist and a therapist, and you make it so accessible. And I do think the woo-woo-ness of it, many people will shy away from it, but as I say, you made it pretty accessible. So what is it? You tackle it in the whole first part of the book before we deal with like actually parenting. So the book is called Parent Yourself First. What does that have to do with the inner child? What is the inner child, and what is the shadow work that we're embarking on with this book?
Beautiful. Yeah, so everybody who talks about inner child and shadow work is probably going to have their own definition about exactly what that is. So the way that I define the inner child as those unmet needs that we have from childhood. And of course, that's going to look different from person to person. But you know, if you have inner child wounds, because you find yourself reacting to or triggered by your children's typical, to be expected, developmentally normal behavior. Their tantrums, their defiance, pushback, power struggle, sassy, talking back, things that we should expect children to do. We find ourselves, unusually reactive to. That is an inner child wound. And inner child wounds often get developed through a repeated pattern of interactions that almost like confirm for us different types of beliefs. So let's say your parent like routinely told you that, don't do that. That's bad. You should be ashamed of yourself. Go to your room. And every time you messed up, you were sent to your room to be alone, and you were made to feel bad about making the mistake. And then when you came out, there was no effective repair. There wasn't, I'm sorry I behaved that way. There wasn't even really a conversation about it, other than maybe, did you learn your lesson? So when that happens repeatedly, that child, because they don't really know any better, they start to develop this idea that like, yeah, when I make a mistake, people don't want to be around me, and people are disgusted by me, and there's something terribly wrong with me. I can't seem to get it right.
Nobody loves me.
And that can drive. Say that again, Charlene?
Nobody loves me. I feel like I'm just a terrible child, and nobody will ever love me.
Exactly. So they develop these ongoing narratives, ongoing themes in their lives. And then this comes out in adulthood, right? We might become a people pleaser, where we feel like, okay, am I right for you here? Am I getting this right? Will you love me if I'm like this? If I try to meet every single one of your needs, then will I be loved? You might see them be completely avoidant of relationships and decide that, relationships aren't safe anyway. People don't know how to show up for me, so screw it. I'm going to just push everybody away. And here's the thing with inner child wounds. It's not conscious. It's not something you're actively aware of. It's just something that happens. It comes out of you, and it can often feel surprising. So when you have your 4-year-old or your 7-year-old being like, you're a bad mommy, go away, I don't like you. And that like cuts like a knife. Like, who do you think you are talking to? And then you start to spiral. Like, oh my God, my kid hates me. My kid doesn't want to be around me. And now suddenly you're no longer the adult in the room. The inner child has hijacked the system. And the inner child is saying, danger, this is a threat. When people reject you, you are alone and nobody wants to be around you. You're unlovable. And then we have to act out our patterns to deal with that kind of relational distress.
This was so poignant for me. Sorry to interrupt you.
Go, please.
When you mention the theme of the wounded child narrative and underscore like things that would go through your head. I should know better. Things that shockingly and sadly we hear from our own children's mouths. I should know better. I'm a failure. I'm bad. I'm no good. My 8-year-old has been struggling with just feelings of not good enough. And you put it so nicely, not just within your writing, but within like
the way you've tabulated it,
visible tables,
in the book,
where there's a theme. Okay, that's a theme of inadequacy. That's a wounded child narrative, and I was able to pinpoint that in reading your book and go, okay, I know what he's feeling. And then, but we haven't even gotten to parenting your child. I'm seeing it in my child and I'm like, okay, what's mine? I'm not safe. It's distrust. And then you end up like not only distrusting your spouse or your friends or the people around you, and because you've distrusted perhaps your parents, but then distrusting your child and feeling helpless in that moment. It's such powerful stuff, but you make it really accessible. I'm sorry, I did interrupt you in that moment.
No, please interrupt me. This is supposed to be a conversation, and I love hearing what you just said. I was thinking about my child, but then it made me pause and think about myself. And I think that really must be highlighted here. A lot of the times we really think about parenting as what we're doing for the child, and we forget that most of parenting is what we are doing for that child within us, who when that child within hijacks the system, it's really it's an act of protection to try to keep the little kid within feeling safe, not feeling threatened and not feeling harmed. But that's why it can be problematic in the child-parent relationship, right? Because children, the actual children in front of you, don't realize that. They're still looking at you like you are the parent, even though you are having this inner child experience right now with them. And when we can bring all of this to the surface, into the conscious awareness, and this is where that shadow and star work comes in, it allows us to move through what would be like otherwise triggering, emotionally reactive or difficult moments with just a little bit more grace and self-awareness.
What, Bryana, you mentioned in the books you have several anecdotes of patients. Obviously you use pseudonyms, but you do have some personal anecdotes, and you do mention it in the book. But what I'm going to start maybe, and then I want you guys to fill in. What are your big triggers from your childhood inner wound? Like, I get really angry with my children when they don't listen to me. And I realized that in my family, I didn't feel ever listened to or heard. And so that's a very broad generalization, and you go more niche and deeper into these things. But I notice, I would ask myself, why am I so angry about this particular thing? Why can't I brush it off? And why is it getting to me so badly? And it was like, well, I've never felt listened to. And now as an adult, I'm still not listened to. And I'm really just being overlooked as a human being. And it becomes about me. But if you deal with that in a child, then you have less of that me, and you're able to parent better, which is the whole point of the book. But that for me was okay, that's a trigger. There are many other triggers, but what were some of yours, Bryana?
I think some of probably my biggest one is just being rejected, and like told a lot that I was an embarrassment, and you need to be quieter. You're too loud. You're too eccentric. You stand out too much. And it wasn't just from my parents. I mean, it was kind of like across the board. It was school teachers, right, giving me S minuses and U's, which is like unsatisfactory for my behavior, because I was talkative and smart and engaging and needing a lot of stimulation. And that kind of like stifling energy was probably my biggest trigger. And I did a lot of work on that, to be perfectly honest with you ladies. I worked on that for probably like 15 years before I became a parent. So I don't feel like my children bring that out in me, but do you know what? I see my children being loud and eccentric and, for lack of a better word, embarrassing. And I watch them with so much curiosity. Not all the time, maybe not in the very beginning. I think in the beginning I felt that social pressure to like get them to stop. But then after I noticed that and I reflected on that, I said, you know what? They don't seem to be that concerned with how other people perceive them. And that feels like a really beautiful quality to just like be living your life and not so caught up with whether people agree with it or not. And so I made a conscious decision, and I'm going to just let them, as long as they're not hurting anybody, you know what I mean? As long as your behaviors and your words aren't like being hurtful, aren't harming other people, like you really should be able to just like what you like and do what you want to do, even if that means we're listening to the Mac startup remix, a 3-minute of the Mac sound as it power up. We had to listen to that remix today for 3 whole minutes. And you know what? I was like, I'm not going to stifle this because you clearly enjoy it. And I don't even have to understand why you enjoy this.
Do you know about the Mac remix?
It's this little jingle that the computer
it's
makes.
The jingle
when
of
it
the Mac
starts up.
put into a beat.
You know the sound that it makes when it starts up?
I did not realize that was a thing.
Neither did I, not until my 7-year-old found it, because he loves all things Google and computers and technology. And
that is crazy. I need to listen to Astrobot, you know, like the PlayStation game. I need to listen to the soundtrack. So basically, you have a whole bunch of like video game geeks who have put it onto Apple Music, and you're listening to the soundtrack of the game, and my boys can go, this is this part when he jumps off this. It all sounds the same to me, but yeah. What about you, Charlene? Your triggers? I would imagine some of them are pretty similar to Bryana's.
Oh my God, how much time have you got now? Yes, I will say this. I've noticed recently that I'm very triggered by my children commenting or reacting to how I come across. Like not to digress too much, but I have got, I'm a moody person. I was called moody all my life, or a drama queen, or like you're so emotional, or, you know. And I've noticed that when my kids react to me, if I say something or I'm in a rush or I might seem like I'm coming across as impatient or angry, but I'm just a feisty person. And I've had to, of late, often say to them, come here, just make a connection, like have eye contact. And be like, Mommy's not angry. Sorry, my love. I know I reacted strongly. I promise you I'm not angry. They've repeatedly reacted in a way like, oh my God, now you're cross. Or, oh my gosh, Mom's going to murder me. That is like a common conversation in our household. Mom's going to kill us. And I felt very triggered by that, especially of late. And the other day, I sat them down and I explained to them that I have a fiery personality. So if it scares them, I can definitely work on to not be that, to come over that strongly. But I also explained to them that it's not a reflection on what they're doing. I'm just trying to reassure them that I'm not angry. And if you're unsure, ask. You can always talk to me. So we're working on that conversation at home. But I got upset with them when they said that. And I almost told them that, you know what, that hurts my feelings when you say that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't. Instead, I sat down and had a conversation with them and asked them to explain to me how they feel and which moments I make them feel that way, because I realized that this is a trigger for me. It's got nothing to do with them. That's one. And another big one for me is feelings of inadequacy. And I'd say my top 3 is also what you feel, not feeling like you're not heard.
Not heard. Yeah. So universal. These are things that I hear the thousands of parents that I've worked with over the last more than a decade just repeated these exact type of wounds. And Charlene, I think the way that you managed that with your children was really expert. You let them know.
You're going to make me cry. Thank you for saying
Yeah,
that.
it was beautiful. You let them know, like, I hear you, I understand you. You also gave an explanation for, this is just kind of part of how my system works. you invited them into conversation? Was there anything like specific that was, particularly unnerving for you? I will work on that. So you're offering that repair. And, I think that if your children are, especially because your children are a little older, if they're like screaming at you in a shaming way, I think it is okay sometimes to say, you know what, love, the way you're talking to me right now hurts. Do you think you could find a different way to tell me that you don't like something I'm doing? And really model back for them how we communicate when someone is hurting us. We don't go and hurt them back. We communicate our hurt in a non-hurting way. And that could be a really good lesson for them, especially as you get more comfortable with them, calling you out. But really, what we also have to understand about children is they're not really like necessarily calling us out. They're just trying to tell us about something that is not feeling good inside them.
Making them feel uncomfortable,
right? They don't know how to articulate it. So they're saying, Mommy's going to kill us. What they're really saying is like, we're scared.
Yes.
And we don't know what to do with that fear right now. What do we do with that, Mommy? You're our safe person. How do we feel safe with you if we're feeling scared with you right now?
And I think also what hit home for me was that when they were saying that, I realized that they're feeling scared. The last thing I want is the one person that they're supposed to trust the most in this world to be someone that scares them, because we're going to grow into adolescence where things are going to get so much more difficult for them, and I'm going to want them to come to me with things that they're struggling with, or to be able to feel that I'm a safe space if there are bad things that have happened to them, or friends that are experimenting with drug abuse or alcohol abuse or anything. The scope is enormous. I mean, I'm trying not to spiral thinking about everything, and I can't expect them to come to me thinking and believing that they can talk to me about anything just because I say so.
And when we are spiraling about all of the future and everything that is to come, what we should really try to focus our energy on is the rule rather than the exception. So if the rule of our family is I try most of the time as best as I can to show up as a safe person who is taking the time to see you and hear you and understand you, then those moments when we are not going to really like make or break anything, right? And when we do show up in the ways that we don't love, we make an effort to repair. And we trust the repair. Because repair is research-backed, it's evidence-based. And when we really when we appreciate that relationships are not fragile, they don't just break and sever because of a negative interaction. That relationships are much sturdier than that. So when we have a difficult moment, followed up with a difficult conversation, and follow that up with a commitment to change, that's how children build trust. Trust gets eroded when we say, you're the one who needs to change for me, kid. Or, okay, fine, I'll stop yelling. And then we don't put in the work to stop yelling. And the kids are like, your words, you don't follow up on your words. You expect me to follow up on everything I tell you, but that is not mutual, right? That's what erodes trust.
So, Bryana, on this note, I'm seeing quite a trend in my own household, and I know there's a lot of people that can relate, that I am trying to parent myself first in the way that I'm trying to take care of my inner child, and I do fly off the handle. I think my temper is probably the worst thing that I have going for me as a parent. I have a really bad temper, and I am also I'm an adult child who at times has had to parent my own children, my own parents, excuse me. And I don't want that for my children. So I'm so cognizant of it, and I'm trying so hard, and I feel like I'm just so conscious of it all the time, but then I make these mistakes. And just the other day, on 2 occasions, I had my eldest in the bath go, "Mom, calm down. Let's breathe. Please don't lose your temper." And he brought me straight back into the moment, and I was so grateful for that. And on another occasion, my 4-year-old, and I was shocked. My 8-year-old and I had an altercation, and I took a moment and I said, "Please," I didn't ban him to his room. I don't want him to feel that he needs to,
that is ostracized.
I said, "Please go," because he was also flying off the handle. So I was like, "Please go, get yourself calm, but I need 5 minutes. So I'm going to sit outside here on the stoop, which is our porch." And we took some distance from each other, but in between us is the 4-year-old. And I said to the 4-year-old, "Noah, please give me some space. Mommy really needs 5 minutes." And because I had gone, to the other side.
Redlined it,
yeah. I was gone. I had disappeared. I was not in my right mind. So I realized in the moment I needed to regulate myself. It was a bad moment. Next thing and I actually had phoned my husband to try and just bring myself back to myself. Next thing I know, my 4-year-old came holding my 8-year-old's hand, and I had pieced this together afterwards. My 4-year-old Noah had said to my eldest Elijah, "You need to calm down, cry finished, come, let's wash our hands, and then we're going to bake some cookies." That was dinner time, but to my 4-year-old, baking cookies is a bonding exercise. We're going to bake some cookies, but before we do this nice exercise together, you're going to come around and you're going to apologize to Mom because you've upset her. And he did. Elijah came with being led by Noah, and he said, "I'm sorry, Mom," and we hugged, and there was that repair moment. But there really is a huge part of me that I feel bad that firstly in the bath, in that first anecdote, Elijah had to bring me down to earth and ask me to calm down, and secondly, Noah had to bring us back together and tell my eldest to apologize. And there was a lot of parenting happening that wasn't coming from me. And
May I offer you a reframe?
Yes, please.
So children do what they see. These children have heard it enough times that when we're about to fly off the handle, that we take a moment to bring ourselves down.
That's what
Your children have learned that it's okay to take a little bit of space if we're afraid that our behavior or our words might be hurtful. Your children have watched and learned that when that happens, then we come back together and we make amends. And there's been a lot of emphasis and a lot of value on that, obviously, because your children are doing it independently, without your direction. So we can see how your wounds of having parented your parents is shifting your perspective here and making you think that that is what's happening. What your children are actually doing, or this other perspective I'm inviting you to see, is they are showing you really advanced social and emotional skills that you specifically helped to nurture and support within them. That's so beautiful. And I really hope that every listener starts to see these moments as wins and really appreciate them as wins. I mean, look how freaking hard we are on ourselves. That you have this beautiful 4-year-old who's like, "Buddy, our big feelings have passed. We're going to apologize to Mommy, and then we're going to bake some cookies because that feels good." And we are looking at that like this is a failure, like we have messed up. To me, this is like the gold card. This is the freaking trophy.
I agree.
Like you are acing it.
I think you don't give yourself enough credit for how well you do. I know it doesn't feel like that, but I mean, I've known Sam for many years now. She is my closest friend, and I am inspired by her parenting. I take my cue from her, and she's often way too hard on herself. And what I appreciate about what you just said And what you've written in your book is the grace that we can give ourselves. Because if you think about it, if our kids make a mistake, we tell them all the time, mistakes are how we learn. That's okay.
Yeah.
You're great. You keep trying and you try it again. And why can't we give ourselves the same grace as parents?
It's that wound. It's that childhood wound. Yeah. We need to keep revisiting this. You know how many times I would have this on in the background while I was brushing my teeth or putting my makeup on in my bedroom. So listening to the recording, to the audio version of the book, and I would be brushing my teeth and coming into the room and just stopping and listening and waiting for you often break it down into age appropriate. You know, if your child is a toddler, this is the right reaction. If your child is, say, 3 to 5, this is the right or this is the appropriate reaction. So I found it so incredibly helpful, but I also think, like any great reference book, it bears coming back to. I need to keep reading it and keep rereading it and come back to that, because I do think, and it's not just me, I'm not the only one. You're hard on yourself. Bryana, I'm sure you're practiced, but I'm sure you're hard on yourself too. As women,
Well,
I think that's a lot in life.
It's socially and culturally sanctioned, especially as women, to be particularly hard on ourselves and to see ourselves in light of all of our failures rather than in all of our strengths and the things that we're doing well. We do a lot of what's called filtering, where we maybe out of 100 different actions that we did today, 99 of them were freaking incredible. But that one moment was not good. And as a result, I had a bad day. Everything I did was wrong today. And we'll focus on that one little tiny thing, that one negative feedback, that one little thing that just didn't sit well. And so much of our perspective can shift when we're. So this, can I weave it back to shadow and star?
Yes,
So
please,
that was the reason why I put in the shadow and star work. The shadow, essentially, I adapted the concept from this incredible paper by Selma Freiberg from like 1912, I think it was, very early in the 1900s. It's called The Ghosts in the Nursery. And what she is talking about essentially is that when as parents, we all have these things that haunt us from our childhood that come out to play in the moments when we least expect it. And if we can allow ourselves to almost like shine a light on these ghosts, or as I say in the book, these shadows, it makes them less scary. It makes not feeling seen, or, oh my God, I'm going to blow up and like be like my mom or be like my dad, right? Have that, whatever attachments and ideas we have towards those things. It makes them feel less scary, and it allows us to have just deeper understanding of our human experience, and really even a deeper appreciation of our human experience. Now, sometimes we can get stuck in only recognizing the shadow and only noticing the things that are bad or scary, or things that we like to avoid, or things that we want to like keep tucked far away and really not deal with. And so that's why this star work is important. That is where we are actively noticing those people, places, experiences, or moments that made us feel seen and heard and full and whole, so that we are really finding this beautiful balance of not just what made us feel unsafe and scared and not enough, not heard, but we're also putting energy toward noticing that there's probably something in our life that did make us feel good. People with severe trauma, finding those stars can be very difficult. So if anybody listening is not able to identify a star, I would suggest therapy, so that you have the support of somebody to hold you through that process and build, have what we call a corrective emotional experience.
So, Bryana, I had a friend actually text me. We were texting back and forth, just checking in on one another. We are old school friends. And she said, actually, Sam, you'd be really proud of me because I'm a proponent of therapy. I've been in therapy for all of my adult life and would love to go more frequently. But my therapist gives me so much of her time, and I'm so grateful for her and the work that we've done. And I no longer see it as selfish or as an indulgence, but my friend who just started therapy was saying I'd be so proud of her. She started therapy and she took that hour for herself, and she said it feels selfish. It feels like an indulgence, but she's doing it for her boys. And I didn't red flag it to her, but I know that every single time I say to my therapist, I'm going to work on this for my boys, she corrects me and she said, you want to work on this for you. And she's also brought up the inner child, and she said, you got to imagine that little Sam, and you've got to be there for her first and foremost before you're there for her boys. So I want to tie that in with the stigma we have around therapy firstly, and then secondly how the therapy ties into conscious and intentional parenting. I mean, you're known online widely as conscious mommy, and conscious parenting has this stigma attached to it that it's overly gentle, that we're coddling our children. So in a world that almost deifies and that accepts the martyr mother who overworks and needs to be perfect and needs to sacrifice all of herself
and never raises her voice and is always gentle and kind, and yes.
So you've got that side of the world, but at the same time you need to be firm and your children need to know when mom's talking, you just need to be you're never going to please. There's so many things there's so many check boxes, and you're never going to please everyone. So we're just living in this age of over information.
Yes.
I think your book really cuts this well. But how do you respond to a world that's so full of noise and expectations for women who feel like just taking 1 hour a week or 1 hour every 2 weeks or a month is an indulgence?
Yeah. Well, I see that not only as social and cultural conditioning, but also as inner child wounding, right? A place to feel seen, heard, understood, to feel safe, to discover yourself more deeply, to really understand how you see the world and find new ways to interact with the world. To describe a process like that as selfish it really just comes down to social conditioning, where we don't want women or people really to be deeply tuned into themselves, right? That would be too helpful and too healthy to have a world that is listening to themselves rather than looking out and seeing what do other people need me to think and want me to think, and how do I gain favor in the ways of the overarching society. Being in this age of information, if you will, it's both a blessing and a curse, right? The blessing is that, you have everything at your fingertips. How amazing is that to have everything at your fingertips? But the curse is that it has created an incredible amount of insecurity and self-doubt. We don't know how to go inward and ask ourselves, what feels right to me? I just need the doctor to tell me. Or what did Bryana say is right? Let me do that. Even if it doesn't resonate, right? Even if it actually doesn't suit you. Bryana said this is the way, so I should do it. No. And I really hope that my book is sending that message very clear, that you are the expert on your child. You are really the expert on yourself. And the goal here is not to gain more information, right? There's only so much information about child development, you guys. There's only so much information. Nothing has really changed,
Exactly.
Since Piaget. We don't really know that much more. Nothing has changed there. What has changed is our capacity to be able to go inside and really listen to our own inner compass and trust that. And I blame, even though I don't really love to blame, but I guess I look at the way our society and culture is set up now as part of the reason why we feel uncomfortable doing that. And when we embark on this process of parenting ourselves first, what we're really doing is we're learning how to sit with discomfort. We're learning how to sense and notice what it feels like to be in our own bodies, to have our own experiences. We're learning how to talk to anxiety, rejection, inadequacy, shame, fear in a way that is more invitational rather than go away, I don't like you, don't come into my life. But I'm recognizing that you are here for a reason. You are here to teach me something. What is it that you're trying to show me, and how can I learn from you? And we're doing this process to build our own tolerance for the complexity of the human experience. And when we can do that, that is how we will show up with our children. We will teach them to do the same.
I was just thinking that if we, there's so much in the book that you can think on or take time to, not meditate, but spend time with your thoughts and figure out your inner child and understanding your inner child. And I think once you become so in tune with that inner child, you'll have more confidence in, as a parent, in your parental intuition. I believe logically, it just seems to me like the two work hand in hand, and that you can then
Correct.
you can with authority and confidence say that I know my child best, and I know myself best because I know my inner child best.
Yeah. So when you see your tantruming child, rather than going through your Rolodex of what steps you're supposed to take and what words you're supposed to say and being in your head about it, you've learned to tolerate your own tantrums, your own fits. And you see your child's fits as an opportunity for them to expand and grow and learn to tolerate their frustrations. And what supports that? I'm going to be present to you, buddy. I'm going to give you my time. Because I know that's probably why you're flipping out, because I was probably distracted and that bothers you, which makes a whole lot of sense because you're 2. And as a 2-year-old, you really do need a grown-up to be tuned into you at all times. That's evolutionary. It's biological. You need that to feel safe. So I'm going to offer you my time. I'm going to offer you my presence. I'm going to offer you my affection. And what we'll see is that the children, their nervous systems sync right up to the confidence, as you said, Charlene, and the zen and the soothing of our nervous systems. And then we have this lovely moment of connection in a situation that has historically been about disconnecting, right?
Yeah. I picked up something so interesting along the journey of traveling with this book, and it ties in with part 3, which is caring for the whole family, which also you mentioned, Bryana, kind of seeing in your children your energy and your loudness and your exuberance for life, and just kind of, and what you're saying is exactly that, just sitting with them even when there is discomfort, even when that becomes or looks another way, and it's anxiety and it's anger and it's tantrums and it's weird behavior is something that I probably incorrectly label, but my eldest does some weird stuff that we can't get. We don't understand why he's doing it. So, and when you say sit in the discomfort, I want to share something, and it ties in with part 3 where you mention aligning with your parenting partner, and that's not just your spouse or your husband or your wife. It's your nanny, it's your grandparents, it's your au pairs, it's your teachers. That has been so triggering and hard for me in the last few months, and I'll share a quick anecdote. And I must give myself a pat on the back for kind of staying in the moment, because that was hard. When you have certain ways that you and your family is expected to behave. So if you have quite good, quote unquote, good children, who we were at my in-laws' house, and they're by no means your typical grouchy in-laws or overcritical in-laws. So I don't want to kind of stigmatize them for that. But we were there and having dinner, and we were about to eat. And in South Africa, especially in the Afrikaans culture, where my family, kind of comes from and ascribes to, we pray before we eat. We thank.
You say grace.
We say grace. So it was grace. It was grace. And we don't do it at home, but we respect that my in-laws do it and my parents do it. And when we get together as a larger family, we're going to say grace. We're going to give thanks for the food. And we do it standing up and holding hands. And my eldest at that point decided to, I don't even know what. We were waiting for him. There was a break in the circle. And my husband and I are standing there like, please come to the circle. Please come to just for 2 seconds, just come to the circle. And he was grabbing drinks out of the fridge to hold down the things he was playing with so that they don't move out of the space. So he was using
to anchor them.
Bottles of drinks to anchor them. And we all just stood holding hands.
The entire family
watching as he took bottles out of the fridge. And my husband and I going, Elijah, we don't understand. We just, we don't even know what we're saying or what we're expecting. And in the moments, I was just like,
did you feel embarrassed?
I felt embarrassed. I did. I felt super embarrassed. And I'm like, he's being weird again. And he knows he's being weird, I think. And he's acting like he acted on, if we weren't going to say grace and pray, he wouldn't have done that. So there's a whole other side of trying to understand why he was doing that. And my mother-in-law was also feeling super uncomfortable and said, let's just pray without him. Let's just say grace without him. And I was just like, no, just wait. And my husband was like, you better go before I lose my temper. And I went to him and I was just like, I can't even remember, but I was asking what he was doing with the bottles. Everybody's still watching. What are you doing with the bottles? And he was explaining to me. I said, let's figure out a different way to anchor it after we've said grace. You don't need to eat with us, but
we just want to, as a family,
we would like you. Yes. Yeah, we would like it if you could join us to say grace. Let's put the bottles back. And I just gently closed the fridge, and he never argued. And he came and stood and held hands, and I was just like,
thank goodness.
Okay.
Great.
We're doing this thing. It was a moment. It felt like an hour. It was probably 2 or 3 minutes. It felt like eternity. And in that moment, I was just like, I'm so deeply embarrassed. And I don't know what he was doing. And I don't know what he was thinking. But I just, in a moment where I think he expected my husband and I to fly off the handle. He expected one of us to
lose your temper.
Yeah, or to almost physically come and move him and say, you will come and stand next to us and pray with the rest of the family. And I just thought, we're not going to do it this way. We're gonna do this peacefully. And he came peacefully, and he sat on his own. He didn't sit at the table, which was also a point of contention. And he asked to watch his iPad. And I said, no, we'd love for you to sit with us at the table. Or you can sit where you want to, but you're not going to watch the iPad while you sit there. So, and he just accepted. I could see how he had teed up that moment to suit what he wanted, essentially to watch the iPad and not to come and pray. I don't know what he was doing with the bottles, to be honest, and the anchoring and whatever. But I just have to acknowledge that deeply uncomfortable moment. And then the difficulty in trying to explain to the family, like, just go with this, guys, please.
Yeah.
So
just so many thoughts come to mind. The first thought that I have is, when you were a little girl, did you ever resist these types of routines, or did you go straight to them?
No.
Did you ever have any?
I went
straight to
it,
right?
I was a good girl. Yeah.
Right. Right, you were a good girl. So notice that conditioning and that judgment, right? So you're conditioning, I'm a good girl. I do what is expected of me. And now you have this child who doesn't have this structure, right? Gathering around a table and saying grace is a form of a structure that is unfamiliar to him. He only does it when he is with the elders. It's not something that's a part of his routine. And, you know, when children don't know what to expect or something doesn't feel predictable, we might see these, quote, weird behaviors. But I think maybe a better way of looking at it is he's trying to deal with his own, like, uncomfortability in that moment. And so what was coming out of you, and you were really actually keeping a great handle on it, was your judgment. But your judgment about him was really about your own conditioning of being the good girl who falls in line. And how I can't believe he's not. And he's doing this weird thing that's drawing all this weird attention to him. And are other people judging him? Do other people think there's something wrong with him because he's not falling in line? He is, and of course, like the other way, the conscious way to look at it is like, wow, this kid is aware that he is uncomfortable and he's trying to do something that would feel grounding and pleasant and good for him, right?
Right.
And even though you were not tuned into that in the moment, what you were tuned into was, I think he needs a gentle encouragement and support to come into our group, right? And you were able to, you were successful in that. And he wasn't as like, I don't believe that kids are like as manipulative as we think they are. Like, I don't believe that they're like actively scheming, how do I get iPad time out of her? Like, I do not think they're like actively scheming like that. I think that they're more just like, what would make this more enjoyable for me is if I get to watch my show, because you're a bunch of old people and I'm really not interested in talking to you old people. I feel like that's probably more like what drives the behavior rather than I'm trying to like get something out of mom, right? It's not about us. It's about kids trying to figure out their own experience. And again, even though that wasn't necessarily what you were tuned into, you were aware that a supportive and loving boundary, you know, you can sit where you'd like, the iPad is going to stay off. That was supportive for him. So there was this embodiment of authoritative quality, which is what conscious parenting is. Conscious parenting, I think, just like elevates the authoritative parenting just a bit because it adds in that self-awareness. What's happening inside for me and what might be going on in my child's mind. That's the conscious parenting. But you're really, I mean, you're acing the authoritative parent, the one who is firm and warm, clear limits, setting clear expectations, doing it with love, and doing it as predictably and as consistently and as reliably as you can. You're acing it, girl. Like, even as awkward and as comfortable as that moment felt for you,
It was horrible.
honestly, I feel like it's one that you're probably going to laugh at as he gets older. It was not a traumatic experience, and you handled it like you handled it. You handled it so well.
I didn't expect to come out of this with kudos, but I'll take them.
You should.
I'll take all the kudos and the therapy, Bryana. This has been so good for my soul.
What a fulfilling conversation. Thank you so much for all your insight.
And also, I mean, I have one really last question that I want to kind of round this off, because I do think, I mean, we touched on it, but there is sort of this stigma that conscious parenting / gentle parenting is coddling your children. But you just said that I tapped into that authoritative voice. But you have these different types of parenting that you're trying to either adhere to or veer away from. So authoritative to me sounds bad. Like, we don't want to be that authority. So if you can clarify that in the context of the book and conscious parenting as a whole.
Yes, of course. I know. Don't ask me why psychologists defined authoritarian parenting as like the strict rule with the iron fist, and then authoritative parenting. Don't ask me why they use those words that are basically the same, but they mean something different.
Gotcha.
So there's a spectrum here of parenting. And the reason why people believe that conscious parenting often is just like coddling kids and giving kids everything they want is because in practice, out in the world, what it can and often looks like, because in my opinion, people are not doing the necessary self-work that has to be done to do this type of parenting effectively. What they're seeing is permissive parenting.
Yes.
They're seeing parents that are walking on eggshells around their children. They are seeing children that don't know how to, self-direct in any way because they have parents hovering over them and making the choices and the decisions for them, and not giving the children, like not building a child's competence by sitting back and saying, you show me how to do it, right? The kid, it starts little. The kid spills something. Oh, okay, here, I'll clean it up. Whereas the authoritative parent is, oh, we've spilled something. Here's a rag. And supports the child in completing their action, right? Completing the full makeup of whatever mistake they may make, even something as simple like that. Whereas the authoritarian parenting is, this is it usually lacks warmth, lacks empathy. It's like unidirectional. You do what I say because I said so, right? It's that drill sergeant. It's very controlling. You need to fall in line. And if you don't, you're probably going to get hurt for it. You're probably going to be rejected, or in many cases, corporal punishment, punitive approaches, spanking, physical abuse, etc., are quite common in authoritarian homes. And so both authoritarian and permissive homes have poor outcomes in children, which I discuss in the book. But essentially what you can expect is, mental health issues on either side, academic issues, social, emotional, relationship issues, etc. What authoritative parenting and conscious parenting is under that umbrella. This is the Mary Poppins of parenting.
Yes, I love that parallel. It made so much sense because we actually recently watched Mary Poppins as a family when I got to that point in the book. Yeah.
Right. And when you watch her, you really understand, like, she doesn't really lose her, like, the warmth and the love and the care is always there, even if she is conveying a message that is hard or disappoints the children or the children don't like, right? If we're holding the feelings and we're holding the line at the same time. So it's, I know, love, you don't want your medicine. Okay, sweetie, here's some sugar. You can have a little bit of sugar after you take your medicine, but you do have to take the medicine. So I'm going to deliver you something bitter, but I'm going to sweeten the deal just to support you so it's not painful, because it doesn't have to be painful.
Yes.
Right? Children don't need to experience pain from parents to be good humans. They are going to experience pain regardless.
Exactly.
Because there is pain that is a part of the human experience. It is inescapable. So we don't want to be enacting pain, or on the other extreme, overprotecting them from pain.
Yes.
What we want to do is teach these children and ourselves how to be with the pain when it's there.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
And to me, listen, one more thing I want to say. People who can do that, these are not weak people.
Yes.
These are not pushovers. These are not overly coddled people. These are not narcissist people. These are not selfish people. These are not people who primarily only think about themselves and don't care about others. We actually see those particular issues more in kiddos that were raised in authoritarian and permissive homes. Why? Because those fundamental needs of feeling seen, heard, understood, and that relational safety were not predictably, reliably, and consistently met. And what I'm teaching here and what this movement is really all about is that let's support these fundamental relational needs so that we can raise children who are confident, who are compassionate, who believe in themselves, who believe in the people around them, and who can uplift our world and our society in the way that I can't think is more relevant than a time right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Bryana, this book has really changed me for the better, changed my parenting for the better. To our listeners, to our viewers, it's something that I'm going to keep coming back to genuinely. And I have already. It's my child said something that broke my heart the other day, and I was like, I read that in a chapter, and there I was at 2 a.m. paging through, trying feverishly to find that part. Guys, our tools to being better parents starts with parenting yourself. And Bryana, you're not the first to have said it, but you've definitely cemented it in this book. Please remind me of your surname pronunciation, because I'm gonna mess it up again. Kappadakunnal?
Yes, you got it. Kappadakunnal.
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 Bryana Kappadakunnal, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show, for healing a piece of my heart I didn't even know needed healing, and being, hopefully it's not your last time, but definitely the first time on The Great Equalizer and TGE'S current read, but hopefully not the last time. I look seeing to what you do next, and all the best as you promote this book, which everybody should be buying.
Facts.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, ladies. You guys are so beautiful, and I'm so grateful for the time we spent today. Thank you.